The little bar is moving. It's preparing. If we were astronauts, we'd be counting down right now. All right, guys, I think we're lifted off. We're live.
Okay, well, I'd like to call the June 15th meeting of the Historic Site Committee to order. And the first thing on the agenda is a roll call of members. I'm Gary Goodridge, and I'll be presiding as chair tonight. The chairman is excused tonight. So, into the microphone, please. Slide over a little.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm not used to these things. I'm Kitty Englert.
No, you're good. Go.
Joe Winslow.
Joe Galley.
Anita Hawkins. Lisa Volsner.
Tina's voice isn't coming through, Becky.
Unmute.
Sorry, Tina Thompson.
Thank you. Okay, so the first thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the May 19th meeting. There's a copy floating around here. You were all sent those. I don't need it. You were all sent those. Here, go.
I got it. Okay.
And they were published and circulated on the town website. And I have had no requested changes from any of our members or any interested parties. So can I get a motion to approve these minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, so Joe makes a motion, Doe seconds. And I'm going to do the vote roll call. I'm going to vote aye.
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 Okay, motion approved. The next thing we have is the officer reports from Michelle is the chair and Doe Winslow. Michelle's not here tonight. I don't think Doe's got anything, do you? She didn't let me know. One thing I want to do as acting chair is thank Tina and Jenny for their help with the May Preservation Awards, all the work they did.
You're very welcome.
That went very well. You can see that on YouTube. So the next thing we have is new correspondence that came in today to us. It's a building permit for a shed. It's 789. You should all have copies of this. 789 Erie Station Road. I physically went to this property today and took a look. Where they're proposing to put the shed would be very difficult to see from the road. You could see it from the parking lot behind St. Mark's. I pulled up there, you can see the back of the property, but you would probably not be able to see this from the road. So is there any discussion on this shed permit?
I was just wondering if we knew what it was going to look like.
No,
She told us, didn't she?
no, it's from the Amish Valley Sheds, but no, we don't have any pictures of the actual shed other than just the physical size it's going to be.
I believe she said it was going to sit on a slab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys, can I just make sure you speak into the microphone? Not only for the folks attending virtually, but just for the transcription purposes so we can hear you well.
Well, Anita and I went to that house and the owner came out and we had a conversation. And she said they were going to put a shed in the back, but it was going to be on a cement slab. She said it's a small thing and it's behind one of her fences. You couldn't see it from the road. I didn't think so.
Yeah, the documentation we have says it's going to be on a stone base. It didn't say concrete, it just said stone base. And looking at the survey map picture, it sits just outside the chain link fence, which is behind that, which when I went up behind the property today, there's kids' playground equipment there inside the fence, and it's going to be just the outside of it. Yep. So any other discussion on that? Or questions?
I would just note that she notes that it will be removable.
I was surprised by that when I saw the
It's just
foundation.
probably tied down to,
Right,
it may be like Joe said, stone or gravel instead of
Yep.
slab, or
Yeah.
who knows?
right. Inasmuch as it's behind, out of sight, per our town code, as far as we're concerned, it's not really referenced from the road. I don't think it impacts the actual property at all, nor will it impact when we move ahead with the heritage area. So if there isn't any other discussion on that, can I get a motion to approve this?
I-
Motion that we approve
Okay,
the permit.
can I get a,
Second
I'm sorry, I got a second, I just don't know who.
it. Oh,
Okay, Kitty seconded. So with that being said, I'm going to vote aye. Kitty?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Anita? Okay, motion approved. So either Joe or I will put together the letter to forward to the town board recommending that this be approved. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the West Henrietta Heritage Area, which Anita and Kitty have been working on. The first thing is the letter to the board, which you should all have a copy of. And that has two appendices with it, appendices A and B, one of which has a map on the back side of it. It says appendix B and it's a map. This is the information that we actually worked on in November 2019, and we had made a proposal to the town board. There's three different sets of, well, actually there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Sorry. There's 13 current historic houses in that district, but they have three different district names. So the proposal is to combine these into a single district name called the West Henrietta Hamlet Heritage Area. So basically, these have already been voted in, and on your sheet there, it's got the dates they were all brought into historic districts. That's appendix A. Okay, so from a town board standpoint, these have already all been voted in. They're already designated sites. All we were proposing to them is to, instead of having three different district names, we want to combine it into one district name. Okay, and we actually talked about this last year and approved this moving forward with the work to start in January, and when things have been going on. We have been working on it, but it's been a little crazy. So any questions on that? You have a copy of my letter to that, which I will let you guys look at your leisure and then just get back to me. I don't plan on sending this out until this next month for the town board to look at. So the next part of the West Henrietta Hamlet Heritage Area is the Historic Properties Survey, which Anita and Kitty have been doing, and I'm going to let Anita talk about that.
Well, Kitty and I had a great adventure. It was a good experience.
And Anita, it's very hard to hear you.
Is that better?
Oh, a little bit.
Okay. Kitty and I had a good experience. It was a great adventure. We went actually on 3 different dates to do 14 properties. And we got them all in. In fact, we actually did one that was eligible and not on the list that we have of currently designated Henrietta historic sites. And so I had taken photographs. Kitty did a lot of holding of papers and bags.
I was her helper.
You need many hands when you're doing this. And So the reports are, or at least all the surveys, Gary, are in that binder.
Right, I have them.
And I also have attached photographs that I take with my iPhone. And there are notes on the surveys of anything that any of the current owners volunteered to give us information.
Oh, nice.
Because some of those properties were not in the Landmark Society binders. So,
Right, there was
so
a
we did add a
mixture.
couple of those, yes.
Right.
And, but other than that, Kitty, what would you like to say? Other than it was a lot of fun and we look forward to a lot of other volunteers to come forward.
It was, everyone gave information about the history of their houses and what they were trying to do, and it was an interesting walk. Hot, but interesting.
Oh, yeah, you picked a couple of very warm days. I was out there one of them. It was very warm.
The other 2 days were much better.
Like 95-degree warm that day. So a whole packet of stuff here, Tina.
Did I hear you say that, was everybody aware that they were designated a historic site?
No one had a problem with anything of the ones that were home and, you know, came out to talk to us. So, yeah, they were, and they want to, if there's any information that we have that we could share with them, they're interested in receiving any of that. So,
Oh, okay.
I made those kinds of notations on the survey forms.
Very good. Thank you. We really appreciate that. Now we can move on to the next step, which is surveying the potential sites, which we have a list of, do you remember the number?
I think
20?
there's 26 more.
Right.
Well, now there's only 25 because we.
Because you
we saw
did
that
one.
house interesting and we were walking past it, so it was like, why not?
Yep.
So, anyhow, it's the Horizon building that is not the cobblestone, but the.
Oh, across the
green
street.
one. Yeah,
Right.
across the street by Terabasi's, yes.
Right. So all of the ones we are surveying are within the map that's on the back of this letter that's going to the town board and highlighted with the green going around it. And there are a few sites within that boundary area that are non-participating, non-eligible because they're either too new or for various other reasons. But, and I believe you have the list of the next set, correct? The 20 some odd potential?
Of the, yes, I do.
Right.
The,
Yeah, I think
ones
they're
that are eligible and then those that are within the possible district area.
right. Yeah, I think they were in that notebook. Okay. I couldn't remember exactly what I'd given you.
Right, right.
So any questions or comments on that? Okay.
Joe, I did want to say that there were a few that had plaques because you had wondered if, you know, maybe that was some kind of a notation we should have put on that form. But those plaques are always in a pretty prominent place. So anytime, I think we only saw like maybe 3, Kitty,
Yeah.
that's 3, possibly 4, but a notation was made even though there isn't a specific check box there.
Oh, good. You made a note of that.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah. Those plaques were offered to the property owner once they became designated, if they wanted them. Not everybody did.
Right.
Because they had to purchase them at that point in time. So,
Mrs. Bixby had her plaques out, had them on the yard.
very nice. Okay, so the next thing on the agenda is a committee report for the East Henrietta Hamlet. And there was a couple things, one of which Tina was looking into. And I'm sure you haven't had a chance because I just created this list today of the actual potentials for the East Hamlet. She's looking at getting a price on having the Landmarks Society come out and do a survey like we had done in the West Hamlet Helen had done back in the 80s. So she needed a more complete list, so, correct?
Correct. I did. Well, just the parameters for the study anyway. And I was not in my office today, so, but they did say they would contact me this week. So we can talk about it. Great.
I'll send that to you.
Okay, perfect.
And then there's a map also.
Okay.
And then the map you'll have two pieces that say the East Henrietta Hamlet Heritage Area. One is a list of the properties that we felt were eligible. And on that list, you'll notice that there's some that have dates over to the side. These are the currently historically designated sites. And then the ones that do not have a date at that point are the ones that are potential. And then there's a map and an address list of the current and the map showing their location. Okay, with the little blue dots. This is from the 2019 Henrietta Historic Sites map. It's made by the IT guys here.
So I'm sorry, I missed where the potentials are.
This list.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I didn't have time to color in on that map yet.
Oh, yeah.
That'll happen. So when you're looking at this list, though, you notice over here, there's a designated date.
Yes,
It's blank in a lot of cases.
those are the potentials,
The blanks are the potentials.
because there are between like 8 and 11 and
Yes,
33 and 13, there are beautiful homes, beautiful old homes.
right. So, and that's one of the things we want to try to do. And moving forward, after we get the proposal to the town board for the combining for the West Henrietta Hamlet, we're going to take this list from the East Hamlet, because in the East Hamlet, they're also on different district names, combine all of these in this boundary into one district called the East Hamlet Heritage Area, or East Henrietta Hamlet Heritage Area.
So you can have a total of 2 districts then?
Two heritage area districts, yes. When we first discussed this last November and we brought it to a town board workshop in December of 2019, it was brought up by the board members there and the attorney that they didn't like using the nomenclature district unless they were contiguous. And when Helen created these, the cobblestone district has historically designated cobblestones that are all over Henrietta, but she combined them together. That's just one example. So that's why in the West Hamlet, there's 3 different district names. And the same thing happened in the East. So what we want to do is combine that, and we'll actually call it a district now. We're going to call it a Heritage Area District 1, Heritage Area District 2. That's the proposal to the town board, and then you guys will have to do your thing with it. But I wanted to get the West first. Go.
No, I was just thinking that was something that SHPO had to designate, no?
Okay, 2 different things.
2 different things, okay.
Right, we can have a locally designated historic area.
Mhm.
And then there can be a state designated historic area.
Okay,
So what we want to do is get all of our ducks in a row, get everything together. We create our historic areas, and then we're already in the process of doing the research
right,
to get to the state. In the West Hamlet area, they had 29 properties on their list that they're saying are eligible. But we still have to do the research on those properties and do the pictures, and we have to submit all that paperwork. So it was thought when Steve and I talked about this a few months back, we'd get these areas created first, and then we'll, as we're still moving forward for the state designation. The state designation is our goal.
but at least the town designation.
But at least getting the town designation is a start.
So you're going to do, so we're going to have Hamlet, West Hamlet and East Hamlet, then are you going to come down from that and create cobblestones, or are you just going to kind of keep it as the 2 hamlets?
Well, at the moment, we're calling those heritage areas because they're the 2 hamlets that initially started Henrietta.
Okay.
And the town attorney, which is one of the reasons the district names and numbers were taken off from the website, and the town board at the time last year didn't feel that having an actual district number because they're not in districts. So when we list them out, they'll be listed as like the cobblestones. When we revamp the webpage, it will have the address and it will say cobblestone. And it'll have the address of whatever it was and say either the Pioneer District or the Railroad District, whatever they were originally, so that people who have some of the old reference material can still see that. Yeah, we're trying to make it a little less confusing. I've had a lot of people ask me, how can you have a district when there's houses all over Henrietta?
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't part of the goal to help it be easier for certain homeowners in those districts to apply for the tax credits?
Yes, the goal is moving forward with the state designation. Once we can get that in place, there are state tax credits and federal tax credits available to historic property owners. And if you are a commercial property within that district and you want to be designated, then there's actually a little more potential for that. Once we get the two locals put together and COVID allows us to actually have a large meeting, which I know is a little hard at the moment. Steve's plan was to have everybody that's within these areas together. And I've actually already talked to the state and they're willing to have their tax guy come down and explain that if you become designated and if you're certified by the state, then this is what you're eligible for.
And it's my understanding, though, that you don't have to be in a district. It helps those people, but it's easier for those people to do it. But then you, as an individual homeowner, you can still apply for those tax
Well,
credits.
that was my understanding, but I'm not versed on the state tax part of it. That's why I figured I would let the state guy who knows about this stuff come talk to us and tell us what's actually true. I know you and I both read that and we both got slightly different views, but we're both in agreement on anybody who's on our present 82 historic designated sites should be eligible for certain tax credits. And that's our goal.
Make it easier and
Yes.
understand exactly what they're.
Right. And that was one of Steve's goals also. When, and I know we've talked about that at town board workshops prior. I don't want to speak about that because he's not here to tell me. But
Well, he did put it out in the news, the town.
he did. But I don't have that in front of me, so I'm not going to talk about it. I like to have written stuff when I talk about what somebody else said. But so yes, that is the goal. Because the state changed their rulings last year and they're now allowing a different form of historically designated areas, which will allow tax credits that they didn't allow prior. So that's what's going on with those two areas. Any questions? Other than Anita would like some more volunteers to help out with these next 20 some odd houses. And I'm still looking for a volunteer to help be the coordinator for the East Hamlet area. I've got the list put together. I've got the map put together. I've got some of the documentation done. And I was just told by Tina this past week that her office is now allowed to have one volunteer person there in addition to herself. They just can't be in the same room. So therefore, Anita, if you wanted to, you could make arrangements to go down in the back file room where all of the files on all these houses are, just to see if there's any other information from the list that you have. Is that correct, Tina?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, so if there's nothing further on that, we're going to get on to old business. Now, the first thing I had on the old business was 1294 Lehigh Station Road, which is the Andrew Short House. And the good news with that is I was informed today that New York State granted a temporary construction entrance to Mark IV that's further west of our historic property across from the Hosmer property. So therefore, they will not have to touch our historic property. Therefore, there will not be an Article 10 vote on this.
I went past there and the driveway is very close to the short house, right near the ditch.
Say again?
The driveway is very close to the short, Andrew Short house. It's right where the ditch goes. It's right there on the border.
There,
Yeah, it's not far away from the house.
no, but it's on their property,
their
which is
property.
outside our
Yeah.
designated property.
Yes.
So
Yeah, so,
at least that's what I was informed today. Okay, so the next thing is the past town board meeting, the resolution came up, which Steve had talked to us about at our last meeting about the Henrietta Town Code and clarifying and updating provisions. That was approved at the last town board meeting. I do not have the actual writing of that resolution, what's written in it. I just know what Steve had told us at our last meeting, which is in the minutes that are floating around from our last meeting. There's quite a long section about that. Can you add to that at all,
I
Lisa?
was looking to see if I could find the exact resolution to read to you.
Oh, nice.
And can we just give me a minute or so here and I'm.
Of course, I'll move to the next thing while you're looking. Thank you.
Perfect, and let me look, because I'm sure I've got it here somewhere.
The next thing is, at the last town board meeting, 284 Brooks Road was historically designated as a Henrietta Historic Site. So Kitty's house is now a designated site for the town of Henrietta.
right now I've got to keep it painted, don't
Yay, congratulations, Kitty.
I? Thank you.
We voted on that at our last town board meeting, or we did the resolution for it.
Right, yeah, resolution 14-165-220.
Yes.
Do you want the number? The other one, I've got it. It was 169, 14-169, 2020. Okay, the other thing on our old business, which is going to have to stay, unfortunately, is the outreach and aid to historic site properties, which is currently on hold due to the COVID. Once things open up, that's part of what we were just talking about, having a large group gathering. We can't do that. So that one is still on hold. Next thing on old business was the Andrew Short plaque, which Steve was contacting Mark IV about after our last meeting. And the information I was given today is he hasn't been able to speak to them about that as yet. So that's still open. And then the other thing is Good Shepherd Church and the Berger Homestead. That's still ongoing with the school. Steve informed us that it's still going on with the school district and has no updates for us at this point in time. I know that they were waiting for the budget to get counted and some other things to happen, so. Is there any other old business that I didn't remember when I was writing all of this out that anybody has? Okay, that being said, then I'm going to move on to new business. The new business being, and you all have a copy of this, the hang tags that we are making up so that when people go out to do the survey like Anita and Kitty did, they'll have some information they could leave on a doorknob, basically saying, we were here, this is why we were here, and contact information. Tina has this, which you have written in front of you, and she's working on, oh, there they are, they're on the screen. And Tina's going to work it out to utilize the printers here, and then we're going to figure out how we can get the holes punched in them and what else we have to do to create those. We are going to, you'll notice on this that it says, please contact with a blank line. We're going to put Tina's phone number there, the office, historian's office phone number at that point, so that people, if they want to call in, can leave a message, and then she will get it to us. And Sorry, Becky was texting me. I also put our email on that, which Doe would get. Okay, Doe and Becky get that email. And then the date, and then the person who did the survey. So in your case, you and Kitty would be putting your name there, the dates you were there and your names. So. Any comments on that, Tina?
No, you covered everything.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's a good change of pace. Okay. So we've pretty much taken care of the agenda here. Is there anything else that anybody wanted to bring up while we're waiting for?
I have to tell you, Gary, I don't think I'm going to be able to help you. We're having problems with these tablets and it's in front of me, but it won't do anything. I can't move it to get to what I need to get to.
Okay, Kitty or Becky texted me.
Does she have it?
I don't know. Becky, did you have that resolution,
Oh, I can get it. Yeah, hang on.
please?
Sorry, I knew that Lisa was getting it, so I was not, but give me just a minute here.
My tablet's hanging again. I'm sorry. They're getting us new tablets because these ones just don't want to work with what we have right now. And this one.
Yeah, I saw that at the last workshop and last board meeting.
Yeah, it's just awful. So, and I didn't bring my iPad tonight, which I should have brought.
I have a question, Gary.
Yes, ma'am.
Is the inventory activity going to start, and I will help, by the way, is it going to continue over the summer?
Yes. Yes, part of it will be dependent on the volunteers, but yes, I want to keep this moving forward until we are done.
Right,
Um,
and that actually includes not just the heritage areas, but also the.
all of them. Yes, I wanted to do, the priority was the West Hamlet, then the East Hamlet, and then the rest of our, whatever it is, 50 some odd
Okay,
that aren't in those two areas. Yes, we're gonna, typically we've been doing a photo survey every 2 to 3 years, and we're up for that now.
and that's the one I'd want to volunteer for.
The photo survey?
Yeah.
Well, if you're gonna take pictures, you can still do this part.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, of all of the ones or the East?
I'd be happy to work on all of them.
Okay.
Before I started on the committee, I did.
You would volunteer to do that, right?
No, I did it. So I went ahead and did it on my own,
Oh, okay.
but I never
Do you have those pictures?
shared. Yes, I do.
So we could use those.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yes.
I'll volunteer to put them together in a way that
Okay.
is readable and useful. that
At least
somebody
with the
other than
addresses.
me.
At least with the addresses on them.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
found the rest, let's see.
Should be 14-169 from the last meeting.
Yeah, I have the local law pulled up. Did you want the resolution or the local law, Gary?
14-169.
I want the one that was voted on.
Okay, so 14
I believe it's actually 168.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, 168. So it says adopt local law number 2 of 2020 to amend the Henrietta Town Code to clarify and update provisions related to town board approval of changes to historical property. And then it goes on quite extensively after that. Did you want to go into specifics on that?
No, I don't. We have a copy of that, right, Becky? You sent that out?
I know it was sent to Tina.
Okay.
I cannot confirm nor deny whether it was sent to the rest of the committee, but I can definitely send it to everybody.
That would be great.
Yeah.
I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, the big change was basically that the town board is able to, rather than having to ping pong back and forth between the different boards, you know, rather than having to go to the town board, then get approval from the zoning board, the town board would be able to kind of do all of that all in one shot to hopefully help streamline the process for historic property owners.
You can basically start what you need to do without having to wait months.
Right. And thank you for that, Doe, because you were part of that whole process.
My hair getting on fire.
Yep. Yep. Well, you had the discussions with Steve, so you were part of that process.
Sometimes you
So I have another kind of question that has to also to do with, while we're doing these inventories and photographs and things like that, I just want us to be thinking about, I would like us to be thinking about eligibility criteria again. And whether there's any historic sites that have changed enough over time or since their designation that we agree with they would be no longer eligible. Or do we just want to keep them all? Which is fine too. It just, our mission is historic. And I would like to think about that some more.
Okay.
I think the context is these last minute sort of fire drills that we have to go through for things like this, applications for historic site changes, that then we're several of us or all of us or some of us are called upon to, you know, respond very quickly without doing a lot of research and I just wonder if some of them are no longer relevant to our mission. So I think that could be part of the notes that you take. You know, does it meet our current criteria? Is it sliding into decay? Is it changed?
I think you're bringing up a good point, Joe, in that I noticed when Kitty and I were, checking the kind of, on the exterior, that a lot of the houses, vinyl siding. And it does look different than
It
what you
does.
would expect of a house from 1838. So
Yeah.
I think those are some things that we probably do need to.
And yet what they're doing is arguably protecting the house. So, and yet they will not qualify. Tina, you know this, right? They will not, with vinyl siding, they won't necessarily qualify for state or federal status ever. Is that correct?
If it's on there now, it might, well, not for state or federal, but locally, we might want to have it designated depending on the familial history that's associated with the property. It's not just how the property looks. It's also, I mean, the importance of some of the properties is based on who lived there.
Right, right.
So, that would, I couldn't answer, I mean, well, for local designation and in terms of state and federal, I don't believe that, in fact, I'm about 99% sure vinyl siding is not gonna, no, once vinyl siding goes on, then it's not, it would not be acceptable.
So I think that's something that we ought to take note of rather than be ignorant of when we're trying to reach out to these homeowners later on and see what we can do to help them. If some of them want to get state tax credits, or federal tax credits, they may not be eligible if they've done that. That's my read on that. I'm not an expert, and I think over the next couple of years, we're going to become more expert, but I think we have to be careful not to raise their hopes if they've already changed the house enough that it's not an architectural marvel anymore, or somebody lesser than Antoinette Brown Blackwell lived there, or. Yeah,
Right, and I think that, that can also be addressed when the gentleman from New York State comes and talks to a large group, when we can finally have a large group gathering.
Right. Okay.
Another feature that we saw happening to the foundations of these houses was that the cobblestone foundation and basement had been just like a cement veneer has been placed over that. So you can't see the cobblestone unless some of that cement has kind of, cracked away. Or if we were able to talk to one of the owners, and the owners would tell us, we would ask, is the basement cobblestone? And they would answer yes or no.
Yeah, when we talked to Steve, I thought we all agreed, well, you weren't there, but we had sort of agreed on becoming more of a resource also for homeowners to
Yes.
have lists of contractors, not recommend contractors, have lists of architects, not recommend them, and tradespeople and specialty masons and things like that. Because I know when I came back here after being away for more than 25 years, I had no idea who or how to get the right contractor for my old house.
Right. Yeah, the Landmark Society has a list similar to that, which we could probably access and discuss with them and then have it as part of our materials also.
So as they slide into this sort of decay or demolition by neglect, if it gets away, if the maintenance gets away from people, we could be helping make suggestions.
Right. And if they can actually get some sort of tax credit, then it might help them keep it maintained.
Exactly.
And I was going to say, I think that if you can, once this gets set up and they know that there are benefits to keeping it the way it is, then they'll be more apt to keep it the way it is. But at this point, if someone's buying a new home and they have an inspector go in and say, you need to purge the basement walls, and they don't understand the beauty of basically what they have, their thought process is, well, the engineer is just telling me that I could get some water infiltration, so I need to do this. If they don't know there's benefits, or that you're willing to help them get those benefits, they may be less apt to take that into consideration.
Right.
That's like in the house that on 789 Erie Station Road, where the request was for the shed. That house really needs a lot of attention, and it needs to be either painted, or again, if we could encourage them not to go with the vinyl siding because it's not on there yet. And
Yes, it would be lovely if the
Right.
Henrietta Historic
because that
Site
was the
Committee could be
parsonage, yeah.
a helpful historic site committee instead of a enforcement historic site
Yeah.
committee.
I think they're doing a little work on that because they were cutting down a lot of shrub so they could see what the house looks like. And hopefully, I think they, want to do the right thing. We had a good talk with this girl,
Yeah, that's nice.
and we tried to tell her a few points about keeping it like it is.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Right, and then in 803 Erie Station Road, when they were doing some work, they unearthed the cornerstone.
Oh,
I
yeah.
took some photographs of that from 1889.
Oh,
It
wow.
was the old church.
Yes, it was the old
Yeah.
German Lutheran church, yes.
Yeah.
So, and she's very interested in knowing more about that house. So I told her, Tina, that if there was anything that we could find, that we certainly would pass that on to her. Her name is Deirdre Abbott.
She was a good candidate for
Yes.
Historic Site Committee.
Kitty was
Mhm.
recruiting her for the committee. Well, she's worked on a lot of historic homes. They had one in Cornhill.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, she just wanted to know, well, what her duties were. We told her it wouldn't be an inventory.
I think we met them when we did our last, when Becky, you and I did the last photo thing.
Yes, I think so too. Yes.
It's fun. I love it.
So what I did though is I put down, look at criteria for continued designation moving forward,
Exactly.
just as to remind, and then list of specialty trades for historic sites, so that I'll get back on the Landmark Society site. And the state site had something, but that doesn't, I'd like something more specific to this area.
Our area.
Right. So if there isn't anything else, our next meeting is September 15th. We don't
Yeah.
typically meet.
Gary,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I may have missed it. Did you guys, are you guys going to be making a recommendation to the town board on that 789 Erie Station?
Yes, we voted on that,
Yeah,
yes.
we voted and a letter to follow.
Oh, gosh, I must have just blanked right out. I am sorry. I'm
Yes,
just making sure, I'm just making sure we get it for the town board to review at their next meeting, since you guys aren't meeting until September, so. Awesome.
right, but the letter will go out much before that.
Yes, absolutely.
As you know, Becky, because we've done stuff in the summer before, that's what I was about to bring up. Typically, we don't have scheduled meetings here unless something is going on. If something's going on, then an email will go out and whoever can come, and we'll try to do what we did for February, I think it was March. We did because of COVID, we were doing it all via email and phone calls. I was calling people. So if something does come up that needs to be taken care of, like this permit, which has happened before, then whoever happens to be here, I wasn't at that point, I was in a different state, so somebody else had to go running around. But that's typically what we do in the summer because we have people with vacation schedules and whatnot, so it was difficult to get everybody here. So that being said, if there isn't anything else, can I get a motion to adjourn? Or can I just say we're adjourned?
Move that we adjourn.
Okay,
Second.
so we are adjourned, and that was a very quick meeting, one of our quickest ones lately. Thank you, Tina.